Dear friends, without further ado, and Adriaan, sorry about the 3 minutes we took from you. Mr. Adriaan Adams, if you would mind maybe, or do not mind opening your camera for us, we are then going to start with the second presentation. If you are there, Adriaan, and ready for us, and maybe I will also ask, I requested colleagues beforehand to go and look at the CVs on the Padlet, but if you would also just introduce yourself shortly, and please then continue with your presentation.
Thank you so much. I believe everybody can hear me. Yeah, thank you to everyone for the opportunity. I really see this as a great opportunity and deep appreciation for that. Thank you for Professor Anne that just shared with us on AI. I'm a big fond supporter of AI and obviously using it in an ethical way, but I do believe it's a tool that can be of great assistance to us. I am currently a PhD student at the University of Pretoria, Theology Department, and I have used AI on a recent research road trip that we've done, where we traveled from South Africa all the way to Rwanda and met with different leaders from different segments, 14 different gatherings throughout Southeast Africa. And AI was a great tool. I'm a very practical kind of a person, and so I will talk more from a practical point of view today as to how AI can be used in research, and less from a theoretical way. And I do hope that will add some value to the conversation. I just want to quickly see, how do I share my screen, and then go the
Perfect.
good. Can you see it there?
Yes, it's perfect. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So yeah, so we did a research trip traveling through Southeast Africa, and I want to just share some practical experiences that we had with AI. As we traveled, we realized obviously that we are living in remarkable times. Throughout our journey, we saw rapid urban growth. We saw shifting demographics. It was amazing to see how many people lived next to the roads. Increased connectivity, people that have access, some people that have 2-3 cell phones and have access. Yeah, there are still regions where there are very little access to internet, but there's definitely an increase that's taking place. But alongside all of this, we also realize that many communities are facing what we refer to as a polycrisis, a complex web of overlapping economic, social, and environmental challenges. So from our research point of view, we wanted to connect with grassroots leaders and try to understand what some of these challenges were, how do they deal with it. And so we took this trip, and the goal was not really to be that academic in itself, but it was to listen, to learn, and eventually to ask better questions. And so my presentation today is, as I said, very practical, and how we can use or deal with the sheer volume of information and qualitative data as we are gathering this during our trips. And how do we deal with that in real time, right there field. So as I said, we've met with different leaders along the way. I do believe that if we look at some of our traditional tools and how it connects with modern technology, the traditional fieldwork toolkits have quite a lot of limitations when faced with the level of complexity and the volume of data that's available these days. And therefore, there's an issue with an overload or a data overload. In our preparation, we anticipated for a huge volume of conversations, interviews, focus groups, and informal discussions. And we knew that by previous experience, manual processing this work and this data would take us months. There's also the issue of time lag, where deep analysis happens back when we are either at the university or back at home. long after we've left the field. I think of a research trip we did, a similar one that we did back in 2015, where we also traveled through Southeast Africa, and we tried to gather as much data as we could. And by the time we got back home, we got caught up in other work, and yeah, it took us a while to really get going and work through all those data. And then also we have the issue of logistical barriers, switching between languages, culture, understanding the nuances of specific cultures, and how that's applicable. While when you're in the field, you can still ask the questions, but when you finally get back home and then try to deal and work through the data, it's a lot more difficult to do that. So for us, AI was a field partner, and we used it in various ways. I want to just touch on two of the key things. So the first one was transcription. We had a number of interviews that we had along the way, whether it was small groups, one-on-one discussions. We recorded, obviously with permission, all the discussions that we had with people. We could use AI to transcribe that for us very quickly. And then we could start work with that data immediately, because we could use AI to highlight specific patterns for us in the conversations we had, specific topics. We could easily go back to the people on the ground that we had the conversations with to ask further questions, to get deeper understanding as into what was going on. But also we used it as a translation aid. I think specifically of Nunkapola in Malawi, where the people that we had discussions with struggled to express themselves in English, and we allowed them to do that in Chichewa. And from our recordings, we could immediately translate Chichewa into English. Knowing that the translation might have a few errors, it at least still gave us a good understanding as into the feedback or the discussion we had, and that helped us immediately to go and return for more discussions and engage even deeper in the conversation. But it helped us to know that the people that we engaged with had the opportunity to express themselves in their native language. Instead of trying to find words that they are more comfortable with in English, they could express themselves in their own language, and we could use AI to assist us with those translations. I noticed just very interesting, in this week, Apple has just launched the new earpods, and that allows you to listen to more than 100 odd languages, and it will immediately translate it to you in English. So I'm just thinking of using that in the future when we go to a specific region. They can have their conversation in their native language, and you will hear them basically speak in English, and it's so much easier to get an understanding of what the conversation is all about, so that you can engage more effectively. So as I said, we use it as a field partner, but a few practical applications. Beyond the processing, AI became an analytic partner for us. Once we had the transcripts, we experiment with the initial analysis and theme identification. We fed the text into the different AI platforms that we were using at that time that would help us to identify recurring words, phrases, and topics. While this didn't give us all the answers, it gave us a rapid first pass sense of the dominant themes emerging from the conversations, even across the different regions. And it's crucial for us to emphasize that AI was used here purely as a facilitation tool. It did not replace the listening or the critical human interpretation required to understand the depths of the stories. Often we had to go back and we had to ask him, please help us to better understand what you meant and when he said A, B, or C. But AI gave us a raw material and the potential patterns, as I said, and then we as researchers had to ground ourselves into the context, and so that we could make sense of it. Often after our conversations with the people, we had to go back to where we stayed, and we had to have a discussion as to our personal understanding, experiences, interpretation, and we documented all of those again, first started to have a general conversation, record the conversation, transcribe it, and then start to connect our understanding with the content and the data that we gathered from the people with whom we had the conversations. So it's critical to emphasize that AI serves purely as a facilitation tool, and it doesn't take away the human factor of it. Some critical perspectives is, first of all, the human in the loop imperative. At the end of the day, the human oversight is paramount. We cannot take that out of the equation. AI is still making a lot of mistakes. Professor Ann just explained a few of those things to us just now, and it's important for us to always go back and verify and ensure that the data that is captured is accurate. So one of the things that we did is that, let's say, for example, when we had our meetings in Gaborone, we created a WhatsApp group for all the attendees. And then once we started to produce some documentation, we've sent it back to the people in Gaborone through the WhatsApp group, allowed and giving them the opportunity to give us feedback on those reports. And they then again helped us to refine those reports to make it even more accurately. But just again on the time frame, we could do that usually within days, where in the pre-AI process or AI times, we would have gone back to people months after we've been to them, and that would have made it even more difficult for them to give accurate feedback or confirmation of those reports. Connectivity every now and then was a bit of an issue. So accessing AI tools wasn't always straightforward in some of the remote areas that we've been to, but we've seen firsthand the varied levels of digital literacy. Simply having a tool doesn't mean everyone can access it or use it effectively, and so as we are thinking of AI expanding in areas such as in Africa, in more rural grassroots leaders environments, those are critical things that we need to be aware of if we want to make use of AI. Best practices for ethical AI integration. As I said, from this experience, we developed a few guiding principles for responsible AI use in fieldwork. It's excellent for initial processing, transcription, and suggesting patterns. But the nuanced analysis must remain a deeply human, research-led task. It is vital to be explicit in our research methods about which AI tools we are using and for what specific purposes. I do feel that helps with the academic integrity and the reproducibility of it. And then when dealing with the personal stories, using secure platforms and maintaining the confidentiality and anonymity of the participants is a non-negotiable ethical responsibility and something we cannot walk away from. If I look at our road trip, our experience, and the things that we've done, and I look a little bit beyond efficiency, the ultimate value for us was in time saving. The shift from moving from static dynamic research process to analyzing data in the field. We could have a meeting the one day, and the next day we could produce better questions to ask the participants so that we could get better understanding of what the real truth and the real detail is behind the stories that they have shared. It helped us, as I said, for deeper engagement. And so the lessons that we've learned have since informed us and helped us with our subsequent work to include developing AI-powered knowledge management tools, where we can use these tools to not only work through the data, but actually produce useful resources to the people on the ground. For example, as technology has now developed, from our research trip that we've done, and we have spent 2-3 days with people, and we could engage in the content a lot deeper and get a good understanding. Technology has now developed to a place where we can do the same, but also then use that information and turn it into resources that you can supply to the attendees to then take to their own communities and use it as training tools or resource tools to assist their communities to be more effective in dealing with crisis in the specific regard if we did. Knowing that we are strict on time and I want to give time for some questions afterward. If I look at the road ahead, when it comes to field research and the use of AI, I think it's very important that we do select the right tools for the right context, that we remain acutely aware of each tool's limitations, and that we always anchor its use in rigorous research ethics. I don't think those are negotiables, and are things that we constantly need to be aware of, constantly to ask ourselves, are we using the right tools? Are we asking the right questions? Are we securing the privacy of those that we are engaging with? And so, yeah, a goal that is that it is not technology is for our own sake, but it is there to enhance our ability to understand and interpret the complexities of the human experience. How to choose the right tool? There are just some of the tools that I'm currently using and some of our team members are currently using. And this is more specific from a desk perspective. But one of the tools that I recently discovered that made a huge difference is Kite. As it helps a lot to cross-reference also citations that has been made to get a deep understanding as into some of the resources that has been shared, the accuracy of those resources, and it's certainly a tool that can be used, especially when you're in the field and you want to share resources with people, that you ensure that those resources are valid resources. And these are just some of the tools that could even assist in doing that. That brings me to the end of this quick PowerPoint presentation. So for me, it's more about answering some questions and give some more detailed feedback if there are about the ways and the methods that we've used with AI during our road trip.
Adriaan, thank you so much. I see a couple of appreciative hands going up for your sharing. Also, some of the information about your field trip and the positive ways in which you applied AI. I was wondering, there is a couple of minutes left for questions when you made mention of the Apple earpods. If they already have a product out which we can use to understand our mothers-in-law, for example, do the translation for us. No, that's just tongue in the cheek. Colleagues, friends, are there any questions? We've got 8 minutes left until a tea break. Any questions maybe you want to pose to Adriaan? I didn't see anything in the chat yet, but you can most welcome to raise a hand. Nadine?
I perhaps have one question, and it perhaps links with some of the previous questions that was actually posed to Prof. Anay regarding the citing of AI, because obviously you guys have used it extensively, and as part of a research project where you use it in different phases for different purposes, how do you go about citing it, and if you do, in what ways?
So what we have done is that we captured all the information, we processed it, and then we generated a data sheet that we've published at the University of Pretoria and give other people access to the data. When we had discussions with people and they were searching for academic articles or more references, what we then did was that we used AI to help us to find additional articles that we might not have had direct access to at that specific point. So we used AI to help us with that. And then once we had the resource identified, we obviously verified the data inside of it to check whether it's relevant to the conversation, and then we shared it with the people. We're still in our writing, so when we cite some of the work that we do, we refer back to the data sheet that we've published.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, no, that's very interesting. You're doing quite interesting work, so looking forward to the write-up of that. So, um, I see there's a question from Michael. If we want to jump to the next question, how do you put up a secure space for sensitive data? And he specifically means where to find guides, how to do that.
Well, my first suggestion that is that when you make use of AI, that you do not use the free versions. Rather pay the money to get access to the paid versions of AI. Doesn't matter which platform you make use of. They will certainly be more secure. What we've done is I make use of Spock.chat. They are based here in Pretoria. They make use of a wrapping system where you basically get access to multiple AI platforms, which include ChatGPT, Spock, Gemini, Perplexity, for a lot cheaper, and their systems are very much secure. There are basically 3 levels of security, which I will not go into. And Spock.chat is on the 3rd level of security, which is the advanced level. But also, I think it's important to ensure that you do not ever put personal details. So when we develop chat bots within the Spock.chat platform, or knowledge bots, is actually what we refer to them, we ring fence it and we instruct it not to keep any personal details. So that's part of the practical ways that we ensure the privacy of people. And then, as I say, from a security perspective, Spock.chat is probably the one that we have found as one of the more secure platforms. And as I said, they're in South Africa, they're here in Pretoria, and they are easy to engage with and quick to respond to challenges that you are facing.
Thank you, Adriaan. Colleagues, are there any more questions? I just saw in the chat, I think, Dion, it is indeed Spock.chat, Adriaan, that you refer to.
That's correct. It's Spock.chat. I don't work for them, but people that wants to access it, I can give you a voucher code for 5% discount. I'm not working for them, but yeah, it's really one of the more advanced platforms. And as I said, to engage with them and get feedback from them is a lot quicker than any of these big global companies that are out there.
Yeah, indeed. And just looking at Rutimi's question, of course, colleagues, I think this is one of the big opportunities of an event like this, is that you can build more networks. So if you want to take on conversations with any of our participants or the people around the virtual table, please do so, so that we can take these conversations forward. I do not see at the moment, Adriaan, any more hands. There's Adriaan's contact details as well. Please feel free to take your conversation forward. And then, Adriaan, thank you very much. I think this was very interesting from a positive stance also, or a appreciative stance on how to use this actually to the advantage of our research. So thanks a lot for that.